science of sport and training, physiology and psychology?
Yeah, I can talk about that. When I started thinking about coaching, or my first involvement in coaching, I guess in earnest, obviously doing hockey schools when I was a kid, but when I was at Dartmouth, I was big into the strength and conditioning. Like I was, when I came in as a freshman, I won a bunch of the fitness tests, and it was sort of my way of working my way up the ladder there. I wasn't as skilled out of the gate, so I took a real interest in it because it was the way that I got more playing time. I ended up being a strength and conditioning All-American at Dartmouth. I was never that on the ice, but I guess I was off the ice. And I got asked to help train some of the other varsity teams. So I was doing workouts with field hockey and some lacrosse and a couple other teams. So I ended up doing an internship with Mike Boyle, which anyone who's involved with hockey knows who Mike Boyle is. But for those of you who don't know, he's probably one of the most famous strength and conditioning coaches in the world, and rightly so. He's got a system, and he's got a great business, and he knows his stuff, and he gives away a lot of information for free. But I did an internship with Mike that actually started the day of my graduation. I graduated from Dartmouth and then drove directly to Boston and did an internship with Mike, which was super intensive. Back then, he was training a bunch of the Bruins. He was training the U.S. women's national team. So I got to see a lot of high-end players all the way down to middle school. But the majority of his clientele back then were hockey players. So that was very in-depth, but near and dear to my heart because I loved the stuff. But one of the cool things he did is you were there from, God, I don't want to misspeak, but I think we were there from 7 a.m. till 10 p.m. Like you worked 4 days a week, like ridiculous hours setting up. You weren't allowed to sit down when you ate. Like you just go, which was awesome. And you ate standing up, and you had to do the 2-hour workouts. So back then, the workouts were 2 hours long. And as interns, you had to do every single workout, which was great for me. And I always say I was proof positive of Mike's training methods because I went from Dartmouth, did pretty well in my career, trained with Mike as an intern and then as an athlete, and then played my first year pro back in Brampton. And our team was pretty stacked then. We actually beat Ken Dufton's team, for the first time ever. They lost provincials to us. And it was by far the fittest and best season I ever had. I was just flying all over the ice. I felt like I had a rocket ship taped to my back. And that was, largely due to Mike's training. So, I personally saw the benefit of it for myself. It got me on the radar at Dartmouth. It got me playing time at Dartmouth. It got me, to the pro level. And then after my first year pro, I got invited to come out and train at the Oval. So that was strength and conditioning. It certainly wasn't my tremendous amount of hockey talent. And then when I started my business, when I started Total Female Hockey, it was off-ice training programs, Wally. So I didn't do any on-ice. I mean, I did, but I sold online training programs specifically for female hockey players. And I still sell that program I started with 13 years ago. I still sell a version of that now. And actually, a couple of Olympians have used it, and a lot of national team players and college players. So that's where I started the business. That was my love. I was a personal trainer. I trained athletes from a bunch of different sports, not just hockey. But that's always, I tell you, Wally, you could give me 50 kids in a locker room and I could train them off the ice. I'm probably better at that than I am on the on-ice side of things. It's just very natural to me. But it allowed me as a coach, when I eventually became a skills coach and a bench coach, that knowledge of the strength and conditioning gave me a huge advantage because I understood when to push on the ice and when to push off the ice and how that ebb and flow happens. When I first started my business, I would do strength and conditioning for teams, and they would, they'd come to my gym and I'd say, okay, I'll train you for an hour. And if coaches, the coaches were like, oh, you got to kill them. They got to come out of here drenched in sweat. And so I say, well, if you want to kill them, like just tell them to do 300 burpees in a row and you'll kill them. Like that's not, I was trying to teach them how to move better and how to be more athletic and how to overcome different injuries. But then when I became a bench coach, I always did our off-ice training, and it was amazing what you could get done in a hallway. So we didn't use a facility. Even with our junior team, it was mostly me and and medicine balls and dumbbells in the corner, but I think it allowed our teams to have balance. It allowed us to avoid a lot of injuries. It allowed us to peak at the correct times. But having that knowledge as a bench coach is tremendously valuable. And it's quite rare, I think, to have that, have a bench coach who's a strength and conditioning coach. But for me, it was always a huge advantage, especially with the girls. Most of the girls I coached in junior and midget, it was not you didn't need them to do more. You actually needed them to do less, right? They were like I was as a high school athlete, like just playing all the sports and training all the time. And they needed to be reined in. And so doing more intense workouts or higher load or all of those things was unnecessary. It was actually trying to get them to recover better and feel better so they could play better. But again, that's where, that plus, I always did all the mental training for my teams. I started reading, what's it called now? Mike might know that. What's Hockey Tough called now? Has he changed the name of that book? I have it. Yeah. I have the Lemieux version. I had the Stevie Y version. I'm sure Crosby's on the front of it now. I started reading that book, which was called, I think it was called The Complete Player back then, the first version. And In Pursuit of Excellence, I think was the other one. Those were my two mental training books. Michael dig it off the shelf there. Started using those in high school. I used to do like meditative breathing, staring at a candle, like when I was 16. So weird back then. I used to do off-ice warm-ups like some kind of crazy person. Like this was crazy. This is like late 90s. And honestly, like I wasn't that talented, but the mental game and the physical game, like the strength and conditioning game, when I got to Dartmouth, like for sure I was a fourth liner at best. I was a stat taker, but I won those fitness tests. When the coach would say at, our first couple practices, hey, power play down there, everyone else down there. I wasn't like, oh, I'm everyone else. I was like, I'm going to penalty kill the crap out of you so I can be over there on that side of the puck. And I honestly think, Wally, like that, the mental game and the strength and conditioning game is what set me up for success and allowed me to develop my skills. Because, when other players at Dartmouth they couldn't get up the stairs, they were so sore from all the weight workouts or all the 2 hours of practice, they weren't used to it. I was like running up the stairs. I'm like, oh, I'm used to this. When they were struggling mentally with maybe not getting as much ice time as they wanted, those types of things. I had built all those resources back when I was in high school, not realizing how much it would help me once I got there. So when I started Total Female Hockey, it was to fill those holes. It wasn't about skill development because quite honestly, in Toronto, a lot of people doing skill development. That is not a need that needs to be filled, perhaps in a way that's a little bit more tailor-made to the female game. That's a need I'm trying to fill now, but there's still a tremendous need on the mental game for the females, the strength and conditioning game for the females. And to be honest, the stuff I developed for Total Female Hockey can absolutely be used on the men's side. And I know boys players who've used the training stuff I created, but the marketing of it is specifically to girls. So for me, Wally, honestly, that's the stuff that this to be true. You've worked with the best players in the world. It's the mental game. It's your strength and conditioning. It's the not so sexy stuff like nutrition and getting enough sleep. Like those are the differentiators. Because when you get the top 40 women's players in Canada on the ice, they're all relatively the same amount of skill, right? What are the intangibles? How are they when, they fail? How are they when they lose? How are they when, they're at altitude and they can barely walk up the stairs? And what's their fitness like? I don't think families get that, or maybe the coaches that are training them don't have a deep enough understanding of those things and the impact they can have. So, that's the need I'm trying to fill with the resources I create. But it's mostly because I'm like the walking proof that it can actually make a huge difference if you're not the most talented, skilled player on the ice. So I've talked too long as always, Wally, but you asked, so you have received.
Michael.
Yeah, no, well, you're speaking my language. So right now I